All right. Hey, guys, it's Kevin again, and this is it. Yes, I know this has been a bit of a delay for sure, but I am finally here with one person at the moment, but hopefully,
guys.
fuck,
My God, Kevin.
but hopefully,
Who are you, John Campia?
I mean, I do it so I can look at the chat, so.
Oh my God, Kevin.
But either way, hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be, of course, the Avengers Endgame spoiler discussion. I know this is a week delay. I meant to do this on Wednesday, but just was not able to do it till now. At this point, though, I've seen this movie 4 times. I'm not even joking. I've literally seen this 4 times in theaters, so I'm pretty sure now is a good time to do this. I'm pretty sure I'm well versed with what goes on in this movie and things like that. So we're gonna go all out here. There's a lot of stuff to talk about for sure. Only have one person at the moment joining me. Hopefully going to get more people on here as this review goes, as this video goes on. But I do have one person with me. He is very sad because his boy is deceased. We're going to get into that for sure. But
just because it's a spoiler review, you can't get into spoilers. Or wait, you got to give a spoiler warning.
Even though it literally says spoiler discussion.
I know, but you got to give a spoiler warning right now.
Oh yeah, of course. Full spoilers if you have not seen Endgame. I mean, if you clicked on this video and you haven't seen Endgame, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know why you want to do that. But in case you haven't seen Endgame, you probably shouldn't be watching this video. It's probably not a good idea to click on this one. Maybe just not the best idea in the world. But either way, go ahead, Mr. Penguin.
Hello. Unfortunately, I'm here. This guy literally dragged me from my house into the middle of the Saharan desert. We're actually filming this in the desert. He's using his green screen right now. It was very scary.
It just looks like my house,
It was a very scary time because, I didn't want to do this. But you know what? I'm forced to, so I have to do this. So I hate you a lot, but you know what? If I gotta do it, I gotta do it. So we're gonna talk about spoilers for a film that I thought was
a very small film.
I thought was a pretty good film. So yeah.
Yeah, so like I alluded to in my review, of course, you thought Infinity War had a lot of spoilers. Nothing compared to Endgame. Literally, the opening scene of this movie, similar to Infinity War, has huge spoilers, and we're just gonna get into it right now. So, of course, the way things start off was actually not too surprising for me. Of course, it does start off with Hawkeye's entire family being affected by the decimation. His entire family is dusted. And this was something that I did predict. Once we saw that image in the trailer, I kind of thought, maybe that's how the movie's going to start. And it did. And it was extremely chilling. It perfectly sets the somber tone for what they're trying to do here. And just in general, it really does get you into this situation. 1 second, Hawkeye, he is teaching his daughter how to swing arrows and things like that. He is joking around with his wife about putting mayo on a hot dog. Such a great way to open the movie. And then just in a second, his entire family is just gone, and he's forced to just have to deal with that. And I think seeing someone like Hawkeye, and this was basically his reintroduction into the series because we haven't seen him since like 2016. It was a really harrowing way to start things off, but I think it perfectly set the tone for the film overall. But is there anything you want to say about that opening scene, Caden?
Yeah, you predicted that'd be the opening, and I said it wouldn't happen, and you were right. So fuck you.
Yep.
Anyways,
you're right.
So yeah, once that was the first frame when I came up, I was like, oh shit, because that's the way it's gonna open up the film. But to be honest, it was the perfect way to open up the film because it instantly, even though Hawkeye's one of he is one of the 6 original Avengers, but he's easily the least popular out of all of them. So to open it up with him was interesting. Because of that, but the way this thing was done and the way it was filmed, his family getting dusted and stuff, it perfectly sets the tone for the first act of the film. And it puts you back in like that state that the ending of Infinity War did, and I like that how they did that. Because like it reminds you instantly again, like yes, Infinity War has one of the most memorable endings of all time, but it's like it instantly reminds you yet again like how bad this really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very disturbing sequence. Jeremy Renner, I thought acted really well, and
Oh man, yeah.
this is his best performance as Hawkeye in this entire series.
Oh, no question. Yeah,
As
that
Clint,
that
as
that
Clint.
that and one other scene we're gonna talk about later, I think is it perfectly exemplifies that.
Yeah, I think that he's really, really good in this. And yeah, so I'm fucking yawning. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so
Wow, so well prepared for this, but yeah, so
hey,
a
I'm not
very
done talking. So like I was trying to say, but yeah, I think it's just like the perfect tone setter. I think like it really gets you back in that state of mind and stuff. And it's just it's a really sad opening for a really sad like first hour.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, very bleak way to start off the film. But then, of course, we transition into what a lot of people thought was going to be the start, and that is Tony and Nebula. Now, I will say, at first, I was a little let down by the fact that Tony is rescued as quickly as he was. However, upon thinking about it, they did a great job, I think, of establishing the bond and the trust that these two had without really having to see much of anything. Just that one scene of Tony playing that game with her, and you realize that Nebula probably has never had this much fun before. She probably has never had someone that cares about her this much in her life. I mean, sure, there's Gamora, but even that took a while. And this is really, I think, one of the first genuine relationships she ever has. And it's really beautiful when you think about it. And especially the moment where Tony, you can tell he's very malnourished. He's very weak when she is lying him down. I mean, there's something so nurturing and sweet about that moment. And like I said, I think they were able to they were able to sell us on Tony and Nebula's bond without really having much interaction at all. And I think it's the genius of this movie, the way they were able to do that. I love the way all that was done. Sure, they could have definitely, had some conversation there, but we really didn't need it because just through that word scene of Nebula helping out Tony, it perfectly showed that bond that they had. And I really love the way that was done. If there's anything you want to say there.
Yeah, no. I didn't have a problem with how
Yeah.
like fast it was all wrapped up and stuff because I kind of like assumed that's how it was gonna be. And
Mhm.
I thought the scene with like his like last video message to Pepper was extremely well done, and it really shows like just like how emotionally versatile Robert Downey Jr. is in this role. And like I've seen some people be like, "Oh yeah, he's just kind of like acting like himself," which I think is kind of true to like an extent. But like the thing is that like he really, really nails it emotionally in this film. Like when it comes to
Yeah,
like the really
honestly,
like
like
sad, kind of bittersweet
mhm.
stuff. Like I think he's like great in this. And I love
Yeah,
the atmosphere.
the emotional layers he showed in scenes like that are just layers we've seen from this character before, but in the sense that Tony tends to repress a lot of his emotions, and this film is, he's kind of no longer doing like this is like him finally those emotions are coming out in the forefront.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I think the atmosphere was great in the scene and everything. And
Yeah.
the part where Captain Marvel saves him, it was
Oh,
like
great moment.
I'll say this, like I think the film is utterly fantastic, but I like one of my only nitpicks is like I still wish there was something more there with Captain Marvel. And I understand that
Yeah.
there's there's the end credit scene in Captain Marvel setting up this scene, but it was like, I mean, I wish that was kind of like also put in the film in a way, but it's like at the same time, like how would that been edited? It could have been sloppy, so I don't know. It's like it's kind of like a weird kind of thing. It's like I don't know if I wanted to pick about it or not, but
Yeah.
that was cool to see. And then when they all become reunited, and he talks about how he lost the kid, that was like like. And then we lost, and then of course we get like one of the best scenes in the film, like which you'll get into the
Uh,
confrontation between Tony and Steve.
yeah. Yeah. You actually you brought up one of my next points is Captain Marvel's limited screen time in the film was not something that a lot of people I think people were expecting it, but not exactly the way they did it. What I thought they were going to do was something like, when they go to confront Thanos, Thanos gives her a tough beating or something like that, and she has to like sit out a bunch of the rest of the movie, and she learns to, appreciate the team and things like that. But they didn't do that. Instead, what they do is they give her a role in the film, but it's more of an extended cameo. And I think it did work, but I will agree with you. At first, it was a bit jarring and I think this is the first time that we've seen a scene that seems like it's going to be something from the next movie in a mid-credit scene, and it's not in here. This wasn't like a Captain America Civil War situation where like we saw that scene in Ant-Man and the same exact scene was in Civil War. That didn't happen in Endgame, which I think was really interesting. You'd think maybe they'd show that scene, but no, it's actually not in here. But again, for me, the film moved so well that it wasn't really that big of a deal. So I will definitely agree with you that at first it was jarring, but the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? No, I feel like if they definitely showed enough. Like, we already know why Captain Marvel was there. We can establish that they probably figured out where, what was going on with Tony and Nebula. She probably, found them. And, that's, we know how independent Captain Marvel is. So that wasn't really a huge sort of complaint for me. So I can understand, why that would be jarring at first. And it was, like I said, at first, but after a while, I thought it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page, basically.
Yeah, so then we get to the scene that Caden was alluding to before, which, I said in my review that there is one scene in the first 12 minutes, with Robert Downey Jr., and that, like, should be the scene where, like, obviously he's not going to get an Oscar, but like, if they was to be in contention, that should be like an Oscar clip. I mean, the scene where he's just freaking out on all of them and he's having that meltdown and he's talking about how he was all alone and how they abandoned him and how they lost and how Cap always said that, like, if they lost, they'd be together, but they weren't together. It's really heartbreaking. I mean, we know obviously what happened with Cap and Tony in Civil War, and you realize that it's still very much fractured, and it's very sad to see for sure. And just seeing Tony that lost and seeing Tony in that much despair was really devastating. I mean, obviously, he's been malnourished. His only contact has been with, Nebula and things like that. And now coming back to Earth, you can tell obviously it's a very tough experience for him. And I really love the way that scene was done. And Robert Downey Jr. just acted the hell out of that scene. And for me, I think it's probably one of the best scenes in the entire film for sure. Every single time I watch it, I am just, it always gives me chills just how great he is in that scene for sure.
Yeah, no, he's brilliant in that scene. It's one of like the best scenes he's ever done as this character.
Yep.
And the thing about it is that, like, he mentions how, like, in Age of Ultron, he had a vision about this, and it's like something when it comes to like dealing with like PTSD and stuff. I think the way it handles it here, it's very subtle, but it's very effective and realistic because it's like this has been building up in it for so long, and like
we've already seen him go through PTSD in like Iron Man 3 and things like that, but this is a whole other level that we haven't really seen before,
Yeah, and the thing about Iron Man 3 is that, like, I think it handles it really well in that film, but like it's like it's not as like like significant as it like could have been, because like the whole Mandarin stuff. So like the way it's done in this film, it's very subtle. But I think it's very realistic because, like, like this anger is building in for him. And, like, honestly, I don't know how any other way that they could have confronted each other about this. It's a very, very sad scene. It's really hard to see that it's come to this. And, it just shows how broken and just how untrustworthy everyone is. And that's one of my favorite things about the film. I like how, like, once, like, they realize that they can do what they can do, which we'll get to in, like, later on, obviously. I like how they just, they kind of come together and they kind of put their differences aside. And then, like, towards the end of the film, they all have that respect again for each other. And they kind of, subtly become, like, the Avengers again. And, it's just like, but like it all began with this, but it's really, really sad and hard to watch. And I think Robert Downey Jr. was brilliant, and like he just like the control and just like the way he was able to like I don't know, like it was just like it was fantastic. So
Yeah, 100%, man. I concur with pretty much everything you said there. But then we get to the stuff that I think was probably the most shocking for people. You know, we were all wondering how exactly they were going to kill Thanos, how that whole thing was going to go down. Because, you know, there were things that we knew. It was just kind of how it was going to happen. And it happens very abruptly. I mean, we have this scene with Tony when he freaks out. He then ends up collapsing. And then he is, you know, hospitalized. And Captain Marvel says that, you know, she's going to be back because she wants to kill Thanos all on her own. And the Avengers basically tell her, you know, look, we do this as a team. And they realize that, holy shit, Thanos has actually used the stones again. So now they're going to finally make their move. After, you know, 3 weeks of just kind of processing everything that happened, they're finally going to get in there. They're going to make their move, and they're going to try to take the stones from him. And I think, you know, this was the only scene that they released as a clip. And really, think about it, it honestly was probably the only scene they could have shown, because it's the only scene in this movie that isn't somewhat spoilery. Even if you were to show like Tony talking to Pepper, that's still spoilery. So I think it was definitely the right thing that they you decide, you know, it was definitely the right move to use this clip as, you know, the scene as the only clip that they show for sure. And I definitely really did love that. And then of course, you know, they get down and they see that Thanos is all alone. You know, there's no armies. He basically is in complete solitude at this point, and they break in, and seeing this side of Thanos was definitely really interesting. This is a Thanos that is much more at peace. But you can also tell this is a Thanos that has been very much affected by what's happened. And, you know, he's now trying to do what he said, that he's rested. You know, he did the thing that he was set out to do, and now he is resting. But the Avengers realize that he has completely destroyed the stones. They're gone. They cannot use them anymore. And, you know, after this whole situation, Thor just realizes, you know what, I'm done. So he just takes an opportunity. He goes for the head, but it's not a moment of victory. And that's what I really love about the scene. It's not really a moment of victorious win for Thor. It was more like he did it just for, you know, self-gratification. So he could say, okay, yeah, I did kill Thanos, but it still isn't going to change anything. The stones are still gone. You know, everyone that's dusted is still gone. So this was just Thor just being like, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to put this to an end. And we see that he goes off on his own. And I think this was a really interesting way to do things. We knew there was going to be some sort of time jump. That was something that a lot of people speculated, but I don't think any of us thought it would happen this early on. And I think it was definitely the right move for sure.
Yes, definitely. That's something that I like. I like how like fast this all takes place in the film, because
Yeah.
it's not like it's like, because I think what's more important is to see the aftermath of it, and they take more time to focus on that. So, I like how, you know, fast it was, and to be honest, it's like, you know, like some people wouldn't have seen that, like have like laughed at that scene when he says I went for the head, but like I don't know, I don't really think.
Oh yeah, that's happened to me too. Like the first two times I saw it, people seem like genuinely like really affected by it. But then the other two times I've seen it, people have laughed at it, and I don't
exactly
really understand that. Like I don't think it's supposed to be.
Like I don't
Yeah,
think it's supposed to be funny. Like it's a genuinely like
no,
really sad
it
moment
is.
that shows like because that's the thing. It's like the rage that these characters are gone through, knowing that they lost, and basically, and like
Yeah,
knowing that they could have, like, thinking that they could have done more, and like this is all they're gonna get. It's just it's sad. It's hard to see. So I think though I like the way it was
yeah. This is
done.
Thor doing it out of pure frustration.
And yeah, I mean, I thought it was I thought it was a powerful, scene. And then, of course, it goes into the 5 years later thing. And, that's one of my favorite parts with the
Hmm.
film. I like how it takes its time to explore, how much this really has affected everyone, because, we know how much it's affected everyone, but it doesn't really go into it like as much as it does, over the course of like the next like 40-ish minutes, where it like really gets into it. And the way it was done there, I
Right.
thought was, fantastic. If you want to get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was about to get into that. We then get to probably one of the most shocking parts of the entire film, and that is the 5 years later time jump. I
I
thought this was
told you
so well
most of the
done.
film was
And of
gonna.
course I talked about this.
Hey, I told you most of the film was going to take place 5 years later, because like it leaked and you didn't believe me. So fuck you.
Well, you know, a lot of those leaks were not true. So,
Well, shit.
like many of those Reddit leaks were complete bullshit. But that is one that was actually true. But alas, what like Caden was getting into. This is probably one of the best things I think the MCU has done. I loved the way this whole thing played out. Just the grim, silent tone of it all is something that is so jarring, but it's so appropriate for what we have here. Just that one shot of just that empty baseball field, or panning and seeing those just empty, you know, sidewalks and things like that. Seeing just how quiet everything is. I mean, it's just, we've never seen the MCU this bleak before. We have never seen it this realistic in a sense. And I think it was so well done the way they did that. That scene with Cap and he's talking to everyone in that group therapy. We realize, you know, he's kind of in a support group and he's leading it, and I think all of that was so well done. I love the way that scene was done. You know, a lot of the other characters have gone their separate ways, but Natasha, on the other hand, she's kind of taken up the reins. She very much is leading the Avengers facility right now. We have this great scene where she is talking to Rocket, Rhodey, Captain Marvel, who has now gotten a haircut, and they give a very good reason as to why she's not going to be there for the rest of the film, because this is, you know, not just affected planet Earth, it's affected all the planets, and Captain Marvel needs to, you know, do what she can to help out them and provide aid to those planets that are also suffering. And I really like the way they got into that. I thought it made a lot of sense. You know, why she wasn't there. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it was a cop out, but I didn't really see it as that at all. It made perfect sense, especially since Captain Marvel, I mean, remember, she's been in outer space for a very long time. If you remember, at the end of Captain Marvel, she went off to other planets to help them out. So, you know, Earth is not her natural home. Like, sure, she's from Earth and things like that, but she's been around space. So it would make sense for her to, you know, go back on space and help them out. So I thought that made a lot of sense. Obviously, you also have Okoye, who's trying to deal with a lot of things, and just the whole way that scene was done. Natasha, especially, you know, in this sort of leadership role that she's in, we've never really seen her this prominent before. Sure, she's been a big character, but not really, I think, the way that she was handled in this film. And that's something I really did like, was seeing the progression of Natasha Romanoff as a character, especially the moment where she's talking to Captain America, and they have that great scene where she talks about how, you know, she used to have nothing, but then she got this job and this family, and all of that was just so well done. And there were many moments that did evoke The Leftovers for me. That scene with Steve and Natasha definitely reminded me of that. The scenes of the, like I said, the support group, just things like that. It really did seem like that it was very similar to The Leftovers. And you guys know how much I adore that. And there definitely are moments in this film that do very much remind me of that. I mean, especially when you have someone like Barton, who isn't going to, I mean, eventually, you know, he at least doesn't think he's ever going to be able to get his family back, or you have other characters who have made these rational changes in their life, is very similar to that of The Leftovers. And I really like seeing just how grim everything was. And I thought that was definitely a very interesting sort of different direction that we just haven't really seen MCU in before.
You need to keep talking.
What? Oh, okay.
You need to keep talking.
All right. So then, of course, after that scene, we get to the other thing that a lot of people were wondering is, what is Ant-Man's role going to be here? We knew he was going to get in there, but that was another question of just how is Ant-Man going to get in there? And it turns out, after being trapped in a quantum realm for 5 years, he is rescued by this rat. This rat just presses the button
real
at the right
hero
time.
of the film.
All of you know, Scott's stuff. Yes, the rat is the real hero of everything. The rat is the key. The rat is definitely the key here. And honestly, it's a shame that the rat just couldn't kill Thanos. It's very upsetting. The rat, dude, definitely, like,
it's kind of funny. It's funny because it's funny because it's like Doctor Strange literally had to see the rat do that. Like, that was the only way.
Yeah.
The rat was there at that specific moment. It's like kind of
very interesting,
you know?
Yeah, no. Again, keep in mind, this was all the timeline. Well, we'll get get into that, but this was the timeline that Doctor Strange did foresee. But of course, Ant-Man, he comes out of that quantum realm and, basically he realizes, and of course his first thought is, holy shit, what's happened to Cassie? And that whole scene, I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. Like I said, I love the relation between him and his daughter. I think it's so precious, and they did such a great job in the second one of really fleshing that out. And I thought what they were setting up, the reason they focused on that so much is because his daughter was going to be dusted. But thankfully, she wasn't. It turns out everyone thought Scott was dusted because he was trapped in the quantum realm. And that scene when he goes to meet his daughter after 5 years and she has aged. I mean, we've never seen we've seen Paul Rudd be great as Ant-Man, but we've never seen him quite this good as this character. And I think it's probably his best moment to date. I mean, I nearly tear up every time we get to that scene. And it's just such a great scene, just seeing him reuniting with Cassie thinking that her father was gone all this time. I mean, just everything about that I love so much. And is there anything you want to say about all the stuff I just talked about?
First off, the Cassie scene, I think that's one of the most emotionally powerful in the film, because I'll say this because the night before I saw this, I went first there, obviously. But the night before I saw it, I rewatched Infinity War. And then after, I decided, because the only one I'd not seen still is Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I decided to watch it. And while I think the film is just good, it's enjoyable. But the thing that I'm happy about, my favorite part was the relationship between him and Cassie, because I thought it was really, really well done. It was very sweet. And, I really believed the chemistry there. So I'm happy I watched it, because this scene is a very powerful scene. And the way it was done, and Paul Rudd, and just the way that he did it, and the intensity, the urgency, and just the panic he's going for, it's really, really well done. And the moment where he goes back to their house and finds Cassie all growing up, I thought was great, and it was fantastic. And so that was great. And then back when you were talking about with Natasha and stuff and all stuff she's been going through, is that the thing that was interesting about Natasha in this film is that for so long, I feel even more than Tony, she actually has been the main Avenger who keeps her emotions in check the most. The only time we've really ever seen her, be very open is in Age of Ultron to, Bruce and stuff. And, to see her like this, and to see her break down really easily, and see her just all distraught and stuff, and let her emotions be very, very, public and forward. It's something that it really, really shows just how fucked up everyone is. And obviously we know everyone's gonna be fucked up, but it's we've been especially you and me, we've been following these characters for ages now, so to see them like this, it's just very, very damn, fuck. So and that's the thing, it's all the things that happen sadness wise, it's not we weren't expecting them, it's just that the way that they happen, or it's so sad. So and it's well done. And I love the part between her and Steve, which I thought was it was funny and stuff. And it just it reinforced the idea before the Scott Lang stuff of again of how they want to change things, which we already saw previously. Now they're still dwelling on that, and then the discussion group that Steve's hosting and stuff, with a cameo from Joe Russo, which I thought was fantastic. That whole thing, it's they're still trying to help people out, but it's they're almost broken out of all of them, which is it's just that psychological battle and stuff that you have to go through. It's the thing is that I know people are it's just a Marvel movie, but this movie's really complex, and they're dealing with PTSD and death.
It is.
And the way it's done, yes, it is fast paced still. But it's still, I feel the pace in the film, it keeps up with how it should keep going. And that's something that I really, really admired about it.
Yeah, and it's definitely enough. Even in that scene where he's talking to Natasha and he tells her how, I keep telling everyone that they should move on, and many of them do, but we don't. And you definitely see that, sure, he's telling them to move on, but he has even though he's telling them that, he himself has an inability to move on. He doesn't want to believe that this is it. They want to believe that there's a way to fix all of this. And that's when Scott comes in, of course, at the perfect moment. And that's really when we get into the crux of the film, what this movie is actually about. And That's what I really did love. He comes up and really one of the first things he talks to them about is, of course, quantum physics and all about the quantum realm and things like that. And that's when we get into what a lot of people thought this movie was going to be. It does, in fact, deal with time travel. And I have to say, I love the way all of this was handled. Just the idea that we got to get the entire team back together, and we have this chance to bring everyone back. And a lot of them are, you can tell there's a lot of trepidation because of, they don't really know how this is all going to turn out. I really did love seeing it. I think there was just some really great moments there. Of course, we get to see some of the other Avengers. Tony, for example, he now has this daughter, which was so great. But for me, at least, I don't know if other people agree. You might agree as well. But for me, that was the moment where I was like, oh, yeah, he's dead. That he is absolutely dead, because it's clear they were introducing this daughter as a way to show that Tony's gotten pretty much everything he's wanted at this point. He's gotten Pepper. He has this great family now. He's been able to settle down. Sure, he does have that trauma of, losing Peter and things like that. And obviously that's still in there. But in terms of a family, he's gotten everything he's ever wanted. And that scene with his daughter in the beginning, it's just so adorable. I love their whole interactions and things like that. And it was a really great move for Tony overall. And I know, considering how much you are a fan of Tony, I'm going to let you talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I did it. That's like one of the things is like when it came to spoilers and stuff. This is one of the things that I'm happy I didn't know. Like, honestly, I am happy. Just to kind of skip forward, and so I'm happy I didn't know about this. I didn't know about anything, but if I found out that like Natasha, her sacrifice, I would have been more upset if I found out about this than that, because of how much I like this character.
Yeah.
I love this move because I've said to people, for me, I think the only way, if you're gonna kill off Tony, is the only way it's gonna really work is if you have everything in his life basically kind of like perfectly balanced in a way, you know what I'm trying to say? And it was, and I don't really, I didn't think if he was going to die or not when I first saw it or not, because I was just kind of into the story and stuff. But like,
to me, it just seemed like confirmation because of just how perfect everything was for him,
Yeah, and it was, not to jump forward, but everything kind of did end up perfect for him. But, had to sacrifice himself. We'll get to that like way later on. But it's like,
Right.
I mean, it was just like, I thought it was a fantastic moment, and I thought it was really cute, and I love the joke where like he talks about how like Pepper doesn't wear any of the things he buys from her. I thought that was funny.
That was great.
And I just love the bond that they had in the film, and the shit scene when he figures out that he really can do quantum physics and go for like time travel and stuff, to cover like the alternate realities and stuff.
That's great.
That was great. And so I thought that that whole part of the film was great.
Yeah, definitely. So Tony, of course, is settled down. They attempt to recruit him, but at first he is not into the idea. He tells them that, it seems like he's willing to bury the hatchet. He talks about how he does miss them and things like that. But he just doesn't want to talk about that right now. He wants to enjoy a life with his family. You can understand that, obviously, because with time travel, he's worried that this could, alter his reality, and he definitely doesn't want that to happen. So you can totally understand why he isn't as on board with it at first. And as far as the other team, we have Bruce, who, in a fantastic move, has now become Professor Hulk, which I thought was just so great overall. I will say, going into it, because of that Twitter thing, I did know about Professor Hulk. I didn't know when that was going to happen, but I just knew that Professor Hulk was in the film. But the moment where they are meeting up with Bruce, and he has merged both the brains and the brawn, the brains of Bruce Banner and the brawns of the Hulk, and he's put them together, it's great to see. And it's another really great moment for him, because he's had this internal battle with Hulk was clearly trying to take over, but Bruce wasn't letting him, and then Hulk wasn't coming out. So him realizing that the Hulk was actually something that would benefit him. It wasn't something that was, something like a disease or something that he should be afraid of. He needs the Hulk, and the Hulk is a cure in that way. And I like the way he put those two things together. It's a really great moment. I know some people were disappointed that we didn't really get to see the Hulk in full action like we did in the first Avengers, but considering what we got in Infinity War, I think this was a really great moment, and I do really like where they ended up going with that. The moment where he is taking the selfies with the kids and things like that, Hulk dabbing, and then of course the moment after where Ant-Man is upset that they don't want a picture with him, just stuff like that. So many great lines in this movie, and that's definitely one of the many. But is there anything you want to say about the transformation of Bruce in this film?
I thought it was funny how like in Infinity War, like you only see him like once, and like
Yeah.
the rest of the film is just like Bruce, and then this one the complete opposite, where you only see Bruce once, and the rest of the film is just Hulk. I thought it was funny, and I liked the way that it was done. I thought it was different. The thing I liked about it was that like it wasn't what I expected. And the way that it was done, I thought was really, like funny, and I liked the scene with like the photo and stuff, and yeah. So
yeah, all of that's great. I really love the way that's done. So Bruce Banner very quickly does get on board with the plan. And then the rest of it is just, tracking down the rest of the team. We got to track down, of course, Thor, where they end up going with Thor, I don't think is what anyone expected. You have Thor in Infinity War, and he's lost so much in his life. He has gotten to decapitate Thanos, but because of his unsatisfaction, because of his despair, because of just him feeling like a failure and that he's let everyone down, Thor has basically gone into complete seclusion. He is a couch potato. He's drinking constantly. He's playing Fortnite with like Korg and Meek. And sure, it is really funny at first. And this is where the whole like, oh, they're fat shaming Thor and things like that. I don't think that's the intent at all. I think what they're clearly trying to show is that Thor is just so broken. He's gotten so broken to the point where he just doesn't want to do anything. He's just kind of wallowing around, and, we can assume that the moment where, Rockets and Hulk approach him, that's probably one of the first interactions he has had outside of that hut for a period of 5 years, honestly. Like, sure, he's gone to New Asgard with Valkyrie, but when Valkyrie says, like, he doesn't want to see anyone, I do think that's pretty genuine, and I love the moment where, Banner does get him back on board, but Rocket is really the one to get him on board, saying that there's beer on the ship and things like that. And again, yes, it is something that they do pass off as humor, but you can also see how tragic this really is for Thor, someone who, what was for a few weeks or a few months or whatever, the king of Asgard. He finally got everything that he wanted, but then Thanos just ripped everything away from him. Loki was killed, and then he almost killed Thanos, but he didn't go for the head, and that's how the snap took place. So you can tell the guilt that Thor really does feel and how much this has affected him. And I thought that was a really brilliant move for the character that, similar to Banner, I don't think any of us were expecting.
Yeah, so one of the things I like about it is like it really shows like how it really shows well how much everyone's changed. I thought the Thor stuff, it's not fat shaming. It's just not. It isn't. And people who think it is are just looking way too into it, looking into it too much. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny at first, and it was just like so different. It was just like, whoa. And then, of course, the whole thing of like not talking about Thanos, it was kind of like a trigger for him, and it just like the whole like there's beer on the ship, but then became so much like bigger for him throughout the film. It was good to see that arc and him kind of become like back down to earth, and it was just it was different, but I liked it.
Yeah, for sure. So again, almost the whole team is brought back together at that point, except for, of course, Hawkeye. And this is where we get into the Ronin of it all, which, let me just say, I was not expecting for that scene to be nearly as violent as it is. I know this movie's PG-13, but that's probably the most graphic the MCU's ever been, when he slits that guy's throat and he's like, tell me what I can do to help you. And he's like, what I want, you can get me. And he just like kills that guy, just impales that sword right through him. Such a violent scene overall. But then, of course, we see Nat does find him. And one of the things I really did love about this movie is that we really did get back into the Natasha and Hawkeye friendship. That's something that we have seen in other films, but I feel like we've never seen it to this extent. We really do see the years of history between these two, how much she's able to sort of bring him back to earth in a way, sort of get him to think a little bit more rationally. And, he obviously knows what he's doing is wrong, but considering that he's lost his family, he's all alone, it's understandable why he's going to lash out. It's understandable why he's doing those things. And actually going back to Natasha, one of her best scenes in the entire film, is when she first finds out what Barton is doing, that he is killing all these innocent civilians. And she's like, I don't want to believe it. And she tries to remain calm in front of Rhodey. But the second that Rhodey exits that call, you see her really breaking down. And again, it really does tap into just how much she cares for Hawkeye overall. So once we get into what ends up happening later on, it's that much more effective. And I love the way all of that was done here.
I completely agree with you. It was one of the best parts about the film, and it's just like, you don't need much time to show how fucked up everyone is, because like right there, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that he's doing is horrible. And it's just like, we know these characters so well that just to see them briefly be just this different is like, holy shit.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I think Jeremy Renner was like really impressive in this film, because I like him in the role, but like, I've never really thought he was like he had this kind of capability to kind of have this more range, and he really proved it wrong. And the bond between Natasha and Clint, it was like, it's been well done in the past, but like original Avengers, it was well done. When he also kind of went like a little bit rogue. Obviously, that wasn't like his choice, because what would happen.
Right. Yeah, that was because of the Tesseract and shit.
Yeah. But like in this, it kind of went back to that like whole idea of like, they can like, there's like comfort in one another, because like, they kind of like train together, and like they know each other really well. And it was a great moment, even though it was really fucked up at first.
Yeah, so again, basically everyone's brought back together. They are able to convince Tony to get back on board, even though he is scared of possibly losing a part of his current timeline and things like that. He's still determined, and I love that moment where he gives Cap his shield, and just that scene alone, it shows that he has kind of forgiven him. Like, sure, what happened, that's still, there's bad blood there, but he is willing to look past it. If it's a chance for him to get everyone back, if it's a chance for them to restore order and do that, he's going to take it. And I really did love seeing that, and that moment alone, it perfectly solidifies the relationship that Cap and Tony do have, because sure, it was fractured, but these two, they do have a very strong bond, and that's something that we do eventually get into. So then at this point, we do decide, everyone decides to do the time travel. They use the Pym particles, they go through the quantum realm, and that's really when we get into the really interesting stuff that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But before we get into all the, time travel type stuff, is there anything else you want to add before we do get there?
I love the moment with between Tony and Steve with like the shield and stuff. I thought that was great. Also the moment where like the whole baby thing with Scott, that was hilarious. Oh
my god, that was great. Especially the moment where Banner goes time travel, and then Cap's face after is like I think it's probably one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie. It always gets a kick out of me.
That was great. I'm trying to think. I think we should just get into that time travel.
Yes. So, okay. So like we said, this was something that a lot of people predicted, but they do in fact decide to they're going to try to find all the stones. Also, I love the moment before then when they are trying to figure out, where all the stones are. And, Natasha has the moment where she's like, wait, guys, there are 3 stones in New York. We can just go back to New York and find them there. I love the way that was done. But of course, they're split up into 3 groups. You have Cap, Tony, Banner, and Ant-Man. They go to the New York 2012 timeline, and Caden here got a rock hard fucking boner because of that, because of how much he loves the first Avengers. You then have Thor and Rocket. They go to my favorite Marvel film of all time, Thor: The Dark World, for sure. Just great stuff there, which we'll get into that. And then you have Nebula. You have Nebula, you have Rhodey, you have Barton and Nat, and they go to, of course, the Guardians timeline. So we'll go by the different timelines. First, we're going to talk about the stuff in New York. All of this was so well done. There's so many great callbacks here. But what I really love the most about this time travel stuff is that they actually don't do a lot of just, let's show footage from the other movies and just remind you how much you love them. No, they actually incorporate a lot of new footage, which I thought was really cool the way they did that. Specifically the moment where, you have Cap and Tony and obviously they've just they've apprehended Loki and things like Loki and things like that. He's going to Odin, but instead of them going directly to Odin, we actually get to see Alexander Pierce, yes, from the Winter Soldier, and it makes sense considering that he was a part of Shield at the time. To them, he was an ally of Nick Fury, so it would make sense that he was there. And I love the way they did incorporate those things. They could have easily just done, something where they just show a scene from Avengers, which they do show that iconic shot, of course. But aside from that, a lot of it is new footage, which I thought was really cool overall. I love the way that was done. There are so many great moments, but of course, before we get into them, considering how much you love this timeline, I'm sure, Caden, you really enjoyed getting to rehash all this stuff.
Dude, it was so fucking awesome. Like, I just, like, the New York stuff especially is, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know, I might like it even more than the final act. Like, it's just, like, it is so much fun. It's just like, it's so like, just like the concept of it is just like, it's just ridiculous. But like, I don't know. I thought it was just fucking like fantastic. Like, it was so entertaining. It was well done also. And there's so many great moments in New York also. Obviously, like, the Hulk stuff with the stairs, and then when they put Tony into like like the cardiac arrest sort of, and then the scene where Steve has to fight the Cap from 2012. That was amazing. That was fantastic.
Right. Especially the scene where he's fighting him, and before then Ant-Man says that's America's ass, and then when he's done fighting, he says, "You know what? That is America's ass." Stuff like that is just so great, and that's definitely one of the funniest scenes. For sure.
I have to say, it's so cool to see like them redo a lot of this old footage and use it in a very interesting way. And it's like, I wonder like how much of this is like when do they film this? How they do it exactly? It's interesting, It is in a way like an interesting sort of like technical achievement in some ways. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you wonder, was this altered footage or things like that? But I thought it was really cool what they got to do for sure. I definitely thought that was really well done.
Yeah, and I thought that also the For the Darkhold stuff was went way better than I was thinking it was going to. I thought it was really, really. I thought it was great. So
We'll get into that definitely, but they basically the teams are Steve and Tony and Banner. They split up to they basically actually no, it's Cap, Tony, and Ant-Man. They go to track down 2 of the stones, and then you have Banner and him trying to get the Time Stone, but instead he is cornered by the Ancient One, which I thought was really cool to see. We knew Tilda Swinton was going to be in there. We just didn't really know what role she was going to play. So that scene with her when she's talking to Banner about the ramifications of what could happen if they take this stone, how this could open up a bunch of alternatives and things like that, is a very good scene. I love the way that was done. I love the moment where he tells her that Strange gave the stone away, and she realizes that holy shit, if he did that, then there's definitely a reason for that. So she realizes that he does need the stone. All of that was so great for sure. But of course, the real stuff is with Steve and Tony. There's so much good stuff that goes on here. Just the scene of Cap fighting himself, it really is showing how much he has changed from someone that was kind of, all that he needed to do to stop fighting was just for Steve to say Bucky is alive, to someone like Steve now who is much more aware of his surroundings. He has this more sort of, he has more edge to him. He definitely has more experience, and you definitely do get to see those two things combined, which I thought was really great to see, seeing how much Tony's changed as well. And that's something else they did very well here with this New York stuff. But of course, we get to another thing I think a lot of people are going to be talking about is the whole thing with Loki, because before Tony's able to get the Tesseract, Hulk ends up knocking into him, and he drops the case, and Loki then goes off with the Tesseract. And I think this is this is very much setting up the Loki Disney Plus series. That's probably what we're probably going to branch off from there. I don't exactly know what the story is going to be, but I think that's very much what the whole point of that scene was. Because I know for you, Kane, that was another problem you had at first.
Well, it makes sense once you see it again, because
yeah,
like once they explain it more, it's like by the way, the Bruins just scored a goal. Yay. Anyways, so anyways, it makes sense because the way Bruce explains it, it's like, okay, so your reality doesn't affect another reality per se. So like if you take like the stones out of another reality, you bring it back to your reality, it'll affect that reality, but like you got to affect it in some way. So if Loki took the Tesseract and then went to, in that reality, he goes somewhere else, that won't affect their reality. So I'm interested in seeing what happens with that, because I'm pretty sure that's what the Disney Plus series is going to be about. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing that, how that works out and stuff. So yeah, I know.
That was definitely.
It's gonna be interesting, and it's gonna be interesting, and also I'm curious to see in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 if there's any, if they do mention like Loki at all, if there's anything Loki. I know it's mostly going to be about Gamora and, you know, Peter and stuff, but if Thor's a part of it, I wonder if there will be anything with Loki and stuff, and how they'll deal with like, okay, so they're both back per se, but they're like very different, you know, because you know the thing with Gamora is that, you know, like her and Peter went through a lot and to get to the place they were, also Thor, and especially Thor and Loki, you know, especially in Thor Ragnarok. So yeah.
Yeah, so that definitely is going to be very interesting to see where they go from there for sure. But of course, you know, they fail. They're not able to get the 2 stones. So then we get probably one of the best moments of the entire film. They decide to go to oh my God, it's Double
Finally,
Nine!
The boy is here.
My bitches. Hi, everybody.
All right, Double Nine. Just to recap, we are talking about when they are time traveling. We're about to talk about when Tony and Steve go to the 70s, and you know he has to talk with his father and things like that. But before we get to that, is there anything you want to say about the New York portion of the film? You know, seeing that again, was there anything that you specifically would like to talk about?
Oh, I kind of like that we got to see, like, because, you know, at the end of when, you know, after that battle and shit, you know, you just see the shot of, you know, all of them going, you know, locking up Loki. I actually like seeing what happened after that shot. Because I've always wondered what happened after that shot. And now we actually got to see what happened. And of course, you know, the iconic line, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass.
Yes, great stuff.
But yeah, that was great going back to that. Seeing Captain America fight literally himself was great. I enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, there was some great stuff in there. I actually enjoyed seeing them go back in time for that New York battle. So that was great.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. So like I said, Tony and Steve, they decide to go to the 1970s where they're going to get the stone that's there. And Tony ends up meeting up with his father. And this was such a fantastic moment. It really shows how far the character has come in that way. The talk he has with his father, and he's talking about how, you know, he knew his father was tough on him, but now he just remembers all the good things and stuff like that. And you realize that his father was in a very similar position that Tony's in right now with Morgan, how, you know, when Morgan was born, Tony didn't really know what he was doing. He kind of just went as he, you know, he figured it out as he went along. And that's very similar to, you know, Howard, because he was in a very similar position there as well. I really love the way that whole scene is done. And it's just a perfect way of, you know, especially considering where Tony ends up going, it really feels like that last sort of thing that he needed just to feel secure, because he really did have a lot of great things in his life. It was like that last little confirmation that he needed, and I just love the way that whole scene played out. Meanwhile, you have Steve, and he is trying to, you know, get some more pin particles and things like that, because as Scott said before, you know, they really didn't have very many left, so he gets a few more because they are going to have to return the stones and things like that. So he gets a bunch of pin particles, and through the door, who does he see? He sees Margaret. Yes, that is her full name, Margaret Carter. And that moment was just fantastic. I love the way this whole thing is done. It pretty much does set up the decision that Cap decides to make at the end of this film. And just seeing him, you know, that brief glimpse of Peggy, it's something that I'm sure he's thought about before. But I think now that there's a possibility that, you know, he's able to go back in time, you can just tell this is the moment where he's like, all right, maybe I'm finally going to pull this off. And that's why what he decides to do at the end really isn't that much of a surprise. And I love the way all of that is done. Just what's great about this 1970s timeline is it takes both of these characters back to their roots. It gets them back to where they started, essentially. And I really, Cap is now in the state that is kind of like, where the idea of him was born and things like that. Tony being reunited with his father, just stuff like that is so great. Also, of course, the de-aging on both John Slattery and Michael Douglas, I don't know how they did it. It's absolutely fantastic. Stan Lee as well had some fantastic de-aging. The cameo there, just, so great overall. And I just can't talk about that stuff enough. It is absolutely fantastic, but I've gone on long enough. Is there anything both of you want to say?
I'll let Peyton go first.
All right.
Anyway, so this, besides like the New York stuff and the final battle, is the best scene in the fucking film, and I don't care what anyone says. This part was fucking amazing because ever since the first Iron Man, I've always I felt for Tony in the sense that, like, he never really got that moment with his father that he wanted because he was such a young age when his father, died and stuff, and when he got killed, and stuff. But, like, it was just like, it's a really, really, it's a sad thing. So to see it finally happen in this way, I thought was like, it was just like a beautiful moment. It was funny at points too, but it was just like beautiful in a way. And I thought it was just fantastic. I loved it. I kind of got a bit emotional at the end when like he hugged him and he's like, thank you. I thought that was just fantastic. And it annoys me though that like a lot of people in the audiences I've seen it at didn't even realize that was his father till he said his fucking name.
That happened to me the third time. There was some girl
fucking
who,
annoying.
turned to her boyfriend or I was like, is that his father?
Oh, it's so fucking annoying, I gasped when I saw it the first time. I thought it was just an amazing, amazing moment. And I loved it. It's one of my favorite scenes in the MCU now. I thought that the way that Robert Downey Jr. did it, and who plays Howard Stark?
John Slattery.
He was fantastic as well. I've always thought that he was great, and he's only had like one or two scenes, like a few scenes, obviously.
This is definitely the biggest role he's ever had, for sure.
Yeah, so I thought that it's just like I think that it's just fantastic, and I loved it, and it was great to see that moment. And not to go forward too much, but knowing Tony's death, it made sense if they were going to kill someone that had to be him, because it all started with him. Obviously, we'll get to like why, then we'll get to it then. But it's like everything that he wanted to happen in his life actually happened, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. And as such a big fan of this character as I am, it was just like it made me giddy. And obviously, like, and Dad didn't make me giddy, but like everything else, I was like, this is awesome, So
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty much on the same boat with all of you. I really love this scene a lot. Like, getting to see, because like you guys said, the one thing, he always wanted, he wanted that moment with his father, and getting to see that was really fantastic. I actually really enjoyed that, and them bantering back and forth, because like you said, Tony's in a similar situation, like his father was with him, like he is with his child right now. So I liked seeing that. I liked their interactions with each other. And I also like that nice little moment at the end where he like hugs him. And he's just like all confused, like why is he doing this? But it was a nice moment. Like that
was great.
Like I enjoyed it a lot. Like it was great, getting to see the two of them, get to connect, and it was great. I actually really enjoyed it a lot. So I thought that was really fantastic.
Yeah, so basically that's everything that happens in that portion of the story. Really great way of, really getting Cap and Tony to get back on. Well, they already were on good terms here, but that's really them, getting back that newfound trust that they have established. Tony getting that moment with his father. Steve kind of refocusing his purpose on getting back to Peggy. I think that's really some great stuff there. So that's everything that happens with that.
The thing with
then we get to the thing that.
The thing with Peggy also I want to touch on quickly. I thought was also like a very emotional scene, and like it really reinforces again like how much like Steve like loves her and stuff, and everything he kind of does is kind of in honor of her, and it was just like it was really really like emotional to kind of like see that moment happen, and so it's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, are you there?
You're like, it's like the connection's really bad for me for some reason, but either way, so that's everything that goes down in the New York portion and things like that. Now we get into the stuff that I was definitely the most surprised by, and that is the Thor and Rocket pairing. Now, obviously, I wanted this pairing to happen. I love what we saw with them in Infinity War. I thought they were definitely one of the highlights of that film for sure, and seeing them be paired up again was just fantastic, especially the moment where, Rocket kind of makes Thor realize that, yeah, you're suffering, but hey, I've lost my entire group. At least Thor, he's been on Earth before. Rocket has never been on Earth until 5 years ago. This is his first time he's been on Earth. He's had this family for all this time, and it's just been completely stripped away from him. And I love that moment where he slaps Thor and he says, hey, get a hold of yourself. We both have lost people and we got to try to move on from it. I love the way that's done. But then of course, the real crux of this scene is that not confrontation, but that scene he has with his mother Frigga, who, I've said it before, never really cared about this character. I really haven't. I like Rene Russo, but this character has just never really done it for me. So the fact that they actually got me to really care about her in this scene just shows how good of a film this is. I mean, when she's talking to Thor, and even just by a few seconds, she realizes like, no, this is not the Thor I know. This is a Thor from the future. And I love that scene that they have where she basically tells him like, don't be the person that, you don't be the person that everyone wants you to be. Be the person that you want to be. Like, you don't have to be the king of Asgard if you don't want to. It perfectly is setting up the choice that he ends up making at the end of this movie, which of course we're going to talk about. But the moment where he's with his mother, just all of that was so great. I love the part at the end where she tells him to eat a salad. I don't know why people are taking issue with that. I mean, literally, if any mother saw that their child was just a little bit overweight, they would probably say this motherly thing to say. I don't know why people are taking issue with it, but everything about that was so great. Even the brief glimpse we got of Natalie Portman, even though it was a very brief glimpse, at least they were able to get her in there, which I am shocked by. I don't know how. I don't know if that was like archive footage or something, but all of that was great. I love the way that whole sequence was done. And again, especially considering how much I really hate Thor: The Dark World, the fact that we're actually able to make me care about Frigga in that moment and really love this moment between Thor and his mother really does underscore how good of a film this is.
You can go, Caden.
I thought it was a great moment for the character, and it really like kind of like reinforced him back into like, okay, you know what? He had the moment with his mom. He kind of had the moment to say goodbye in a way, kind of with Tony, with his sad dad and stuff. And I thought it was really well done. And I think that Chris Hemsworth nailed the scene personally. And it was funny. I thought the scene with Rocket when he took the freaking ether out of Natalie Portman's character Jane. I thought like it was funny when he runs away from the guards and then like get the bunny and stuff. I thought it was funny. And then when he gets like the hammer
that was
back,
great.
And when he gets the hammer back was just an awesome moment. Like I'm so worthy.
Yeah, of course. We got to talk about that. He does get Mjolnir back. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I pretty much agree. I really enjoyed that scene a lot, and like seeing the conversation between the two of them, like with like with Tony and his father, it was like great seeing that. And it was a great moment for Thor to realize, I need to like step up again. I need to be, I need to help out everybody. I kind of enjoyed that. I liked seeing that a lot. But of course, my favorite moment is when he, holds out his hand and he's like, "Come on!" And Rocket's just like, What is he doing? And what is he doing? And then he gets the hammer. He's like, I'm still worthy. Like, great. That was a great moment.
And she's like, it takes a couple seconds.
It takes a couple seconds.
Yes. Just seeing him get Mjolnir back. So great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was great. But I love the
and then
way all of that was done. So that's really everything in that timeline. And of course, the last one to talk about, because it probably is the meatiest of them all, is the stuff, of course, on Mirage and things like that. This whole sequence is insane. The stuff with Nebula and Rhodey, who, let me just say, I love what they do with Nebula in this film. I love how prominent of a character she was here. I liked, and it made sense because she really is the person left that was like closest to Thanos and things like that. So I really love the way all of that was done. But then, of course, the pairing between her and Rhodey was so great. I love the moment where Rhodey is talking about how, I wasn't always this way, but we both got to work with what we have. That was really fantastic. But of course, the stuff to really talk about is what ends up happening with Nebula. We find out that, of course, Nebula warns Rhodey that we're not the only ones looking for stones. And we realized that, of course, Thanos was still out there along with Nebula and along with Gamora. And this Nebula shares the same consciousness as, of course, our Nebula does. And I thought there was a really great moment. I love when she's just, she's short-circuiting, she falls to the ground, and we see these memories, and you can just see the look on Thanos. He has you can just see how enraged he is about this and how determined he is to, make sure that this doesn't happen. And he very quickly gets word of what's going on. And I don't think any of us suspected that this is what was going to happen. We knew there would be some sort of final fight, but I don't think anyone suspected that it was going to go down quite like this. And I love the way all of this played out, that Thanos from 2014, he gets word of what they're trying to undo. The Nebula in 2014, she switches places with our Nebula. She gives Thanos the Pym particles, and they decide to go back, go to the present day and, prevent this from happening. He realizes that they're trying to undo what he did, and he wants to try to stop that at all costs. It does a couple things here. It shows Thanos' determination, but it also shows how evil he really is. Because, a lot of people, I've heard many articles like defending Thanos and things like that. And honestly, sure, yes, he did have a plan, but he is still evil. He is absolutely evil what he was doing. He murdered trillions of people, and you really do get to see that here. I mean, just the fact that he has this bitterness for Nebula, and basically he forces her to go along with this plan that she needs to prove to him that she's on his side and things like that. Just all of that, it's very chilling to watch. You also get to see Gamora as subservient to Thanos as we've ever seen her, which we haven't really seen since the first Guardians, which was really cool to see here for sure. Just everything about that sequence was so great. I love the moment when Nebula realizes that Thanos knows what's going on, and I think they did a really great job of that overall. Like I said, all knew there was going to be some sort of climactic battle involving Thanos, but I don't think this is quite how we expected to go, and I absolutely love that.
I thought it was completely unpredictable how they were going to do it, and the way it was done, I was like, once it hit me, like, what was going to really happen, I was like, oh, shit. Like, we're actually going to see Thanos, like, actually really, really on Earth. Like, where it actually, like, really, really, like, I'm not saying, like, Wakanda doesn't matter, but, like, where we, like, it kind of all began in a way at, like, the Avengers facility and stuff. I was like, damn, this is about to be crazy. And not to skip too forward too much, but just, like, the whole build-up was just fantastic. And then when it actually happened, it was just like, whoa. So.
Yeah, for sure. I this was the last thing I had expected for, like, how this would lead into, like, the final battle. Like, I actually thought the way that they handled this was actually really great.
Yeah.
And once
sure.
both of, like, Nebula's, like, fragments were, like, going out of control, I was like, oh no, I know where this is heading. And this is, like, it was great. Like, I enjoyed that. The thing we're not talking about, though, is when Rhodey knocks the fuck out of Peter Quill. That was hilarious.
That was great.
Like, he's just singing, and then boom, just gets knocked the fuck out. Like, that was hilarious.
And then when he's like, so he's an idiot.
Oh yeah, so he's an idiot. But no, I thought that whole scene was great, and I thought the way that just it would lead into to other things that will go on later on in the film, I thought was done really well.
Yeah, so that was all really great to see for sure. But then, of course, we get to probably the most heartbreaking out of everything that transpires, with the time travel stuff. I don't think any of us really expected this. Of course, while Nebula and Rhodey, they're trying to get the Power Stone, you have Barton and Nat. They are trying to get they're trying to get the Soul Stone. And this is something that I don't think a lot of us thought about. A lot of people thought they were going to make another gauntlet, but I really didn't hear too many people think of, well, I mean, with the Soul Stone, somebody is going to have to die. You're going to have to sacrifice someone. And that moment where both of them realize like what the Soul Stone is really about, that one of them are going to have to die. It's devastating to watch. You think it's going to be Hawkeye. You see the regret that he has. You see the fact that he doesn't like what he's become. He's ready to just, take it all away. But you see that Nat, she's not going to let him do that. She cares about him way too much for him to do that. She knows that he has a family. She knows that he has a chance to get it all back. She, on the other hand, this is her family. These are the people she cares about, and she's tried to do whatever she can to try to get it back, and Black Widow ends up sacrificing herself, and that's it. Black Widow is dead. And look, there were a lot of predictions for sure heading into this film. I don't think any of us suspected the Black Widow was going to die. I think out of everything, that was easily the most surprising thing of this entire film. Such a tragic moment. I nearly started bawling when this happened. I could not believe what was going on. I also love how this sort of, Black Widow dying mirrors what happened with Gamora, except with Gamora was, of course, Thanos pushed her off while Nat actually just, sacrificed herself. It was a great way of mirroring that. I love the music that plays, for that. I love all that stuff for sure. And it was just such a fantastic moment. It was so devastating to watch, but it makes sense for her character. That scene where she's talking about how this is her family and things like that. It makes sense why she's done this. She's been one of the people that, for 5 years, she's done whatever it takes to try to get everyone back. And it's just such a brilliant moment. And they do a great job of misleading you as well. I mean, one of the moments that always gets me rewatching it is before they all go into the quantum realm. The one person who speaks, she says to Steve, she says, "See you in a minute." And just, that gets me every single time, because what's going to happen. That she's not going to be seeing them in a minute. And just everything about that scene, it's so well done. It's so shocking, but it's very satisfying. And we'll talk about the Black Widow movie and things like that later, but I really love the way this was done. It was easily the most surprising thing in the entire film, no question.
Yeah, I was extremely shocked by this. I was like, whoa, like I don't think anyone honestly really saw this coming, to be honest, because it's just like damn, like they actually they killed off like Black Widow. And look, it's not just so much that like she has her own film coming out, which I'm just so like I do not know exactly what's gonna happen with that, but obviously we'll see. But it's like, right. It's just like one of the original 6 Avengers is actually like really, really dead. Which is just, it's like,
and there's
holy
no one
shit.
doing it. They've confirmed.
Yeah, so it's just like, wow, and yeah, I mean, I thought that the scene, it's like, for me, like, the more and more I see it, it's like the hardest scene to watch. It's like, because it's just so like, it's just like, I mean, hey, what had to happen, but it's like, it's a cruel, it's very, very sad in a way. And, the fact that she ended up sacrificing herself, and, she's like, it's okay. Like, you can let go. That whole scene was just so emotional to see. And I mean, I thought it was a fantastic moment in the film, but it was very, very sad and very hard to watch. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same boat. Like, out of all the things in this movie, I pretty much didn't see this coming the most, to be honest. I did not expect Black Widow, because I thought it was going to be Hawkeye, to be honest, because I was like, okay, because of, like you said, because of all the wrong things he's done, stuff like that. But I actually liked how that scene played out. They were kind of fighting in the sense to like, no, I'm going to be the one to sacrifice myself. No, I'm going to be the one to sacrifice myself. And just I thought that scene was beautifully done. It was actually really emotional because I
Mhm.
actually have enjoyed the character of Black Widow throughout all of these movies. To be honest, I thought Scarlett Johansson done a really great
Yeah.
job of playing this character, and I'm gonna really miss her because like I said, I've always really enjoyed
Oh
this
man,
character.
yeah.
And I thought that just the way that they handled the scene was really great, and it was really emotional too.
Well, like that's the thing. It's like the idea of doing a prequel film is really stupid because like in Age of Ultron, they talk about
Yeah.
how her past is very, very wonky for her because of how traumatic it is. And
Right.
it's like why would they do a prequel film? It's like it's just gonna ruin that that sadness and that like a little bit of like suspense that there is for that. And it would just be like
Yeah,
it'd
it
be
feels
unfortunate to get rid of that
pointless.
because she's such a broken character, and to see her like this, it kind of like to see her be so raw in this film would take away that power to be honest, because she's been such like if you look at her from Iron Man 2 to now, it's like what the fuck, you know? So I mean, it's like goddamn, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard a lot of people speculate on the Black Widow film. Some people even think it might take place during the 5-year gap, but who honestly knows? We'll cross that
What's
bridge
the point
once
of
we get
doing
there.
that
But
though? Like, I'm sorry, but like, I
yeah,
don't
no,
care about that.
exactly.
She's dead. There's gonna be no suspense.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know it
There's
sounds
really
fucked up, but
it'd be
bruh, she's dead. It's just like, come on.
yeah. There's
It's
really
either
no
she's dead or
point
she's not dead.
in doing that. Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And the Russo brothers even confirmed, like, there is no undoing this. Like, it can't be undone. And that actually segues into the next thing we're going to talk about is, Hawkeye shows up. Everyone has gotten the stones, but they realize that, holy shit, where is Nat? What's going on? And then they very quickly realize that she has died. And the moment where now, I know we talked about Jeremy Renner before and how good he is, but his best moment in the film for me is when he's breaking down and, Thor is telling him that, oh, this can be undone. We have the stones. We can bring her back. There's nothing to worry about. But Hawkeye's telling him, no, this cannot be undone. This is it. There's no way of undoing this. If you want to, fix this, go to Red Skull yourself and, try to fix it. But that whole scene I think is so well done. Renner acted the shit out of that scene, and I think it's a beautifully handled scene. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they didn't do enough for Black Widow's death, but I think they definitely did. You see Banner break down. You see how much this has affected him because him and Nat were in a relationship for a little bit. You see obviously what the impact it has on Hawkeye, and you see how this really does inspire everyone that we need to get this done now. This is what Nat would want us to do. The whole reason she did this is to get to this moment, and now that we're here, we need to just succeed. We need to succeed. We need to pull this off, and it's just a really great moment overall. It's very sad to see Black Widow go, but seeing everyone so broken because of this, and seeing them inspired to finally perform this solution, it's great to see, and I love the way all of that was done.
Yeah, for me, when it first happened, it was like my major issue with the film because I felt like it was a bit too rushed. But the more and more I saw it, I kind of was like, okay, this is a really long film, and it's like they can't drag it out too much. But that's still my
Yeah.
only little nitpick. I wish there was just a little bit more time to kind of cope with it because it's such a fast-paced film, and they take so much time setting things up that I kind of wish they took a little bit more of that time to kind of drag this up a bit more. Because I mean, when Tony dies, I mean, like that whole part was just like holy fucking shit. But like I kind of wish there was a little bit more like that with her. But it is what it is. So
yeah. No, I could see where the kind of the complaint of that is coming from, to be honest, because it is kind of just like that in a way. But like, the movies are 3 hours enough, and the kind of need to get things going. But I thought that the way that they handled that in that scene was really good. And like Kevin said, I actually think Jeremy Renner's performance in this film, other than Robert Downey Jr.'s, actually Jeremy Renner's performance is actually my favorite in the film. Besides Robert Downey Jr.'s, I actually think he's really fantastic in this movie, and this scene just kind of proves that to me. Like,
Mhm.
I really enjoyed this scene a lot. I actually thought the way that all of them kind of handled their death, and like, they're kind of like denying it at first. They're kind of like, okay, no, we can undo this, right? Like, we can undo it. And then they just, Hawkeye's like, no, we can't. We just can't undo. And I actually thought it was a really great scene.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, then we get to the real big stuff. They have the gauntlet and everything that Tony has made. There's that great moment where they're putting the stones in and Rocket just goes boom, and you see them just like scowl at him. That was a great scene. But then, of course, the question is, who is going to put on the gauntlet? They're all trying to figure it out. And, Hulk basically says, you know what? We know what it did to Thanos. The radiation is basically gamma. It's made for me, so I'm going to put it on. And he, at first, while he is very much affected by it, you can see this is very much burning him, and he's in tons of pain, but he does get to snap, and it works. We see Hawkeye's wife is alive. She calls him, and it seems like it has worked. And then right when it seems like everything has gone right, in come the missiles. We see missiles are coming in. The entire Avengers facility is blown to bits, and that's when we get into the real amazing stuff with this film that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But before we do, is there anything you guys want to say about that scene?
I think that scene with where they're all deciding like what to do, and then Bruce snaps and stuff was very it was like it was just like damn like fuck man, like this thing's really that powerful. And then of course there's like the moment of like peace and what's the word, tranquility? I can't say it.
Tranquility.
Yeah, like that whole thing. It was just like. It was like, wow, okay, like, I guess this is it. And then, of course, the fucking missile comes down and, everything goes to shit, basically. And, yeah, I mean, the setup to it, I thought was like, it was like the most, like, peaceful. It's so interesting because it's like the most peaceful moment in the film instantly goes to the most holy shit moment in the film,
Yeah, like it's like Ant-Man's like Scott's just admiring the sky and whatever, and just kaboom, like it was like holy shit,
boom, bitch, like oh shit,
boom, bitch.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere, and that's when we get the thing that people are going to be remembering for this film. We get one of the best third acts, I think, in any film, no question about it, and one of the best third acts ever. There's so much to love about this scene. It starts off and everyone is now in, the rubble and things like that. And, they know the stones are still out there. So Tony, Thor, and Cap, you got them trying to face Thanos, but they just can't do it. There's too much. He has this huge army. He's way too prepared for it. And, they just can't seem to do it on their own. One of the best moments, though, in that scene, of course, you have that scene where you have that moment where Thor gets both Mjolnir and he has the Stormbreaker, and he's just ready to get into Thanos, but Thanos nearly kills him. Like, he almost impales he almost kills him with Stormbreaker, but thankfully he doesn't. And then, Tony goes down. Thor, unfortunately, is not nearly as strong because of the fact that he has been so inactive for 5 years. He's not nearly as strong as he usually is. So Cap is the only one left standing. There's that moment where he's tightening his shield, and even though Thanos has this enormous army, Cap is ready to do it. And then, of course, what ends up happening, I'm not going to say because it's way too awesome. These guys, what ends up happening, guys? What ends up happening in that?
You hear a, and then it goes Cap.
Yes.
Cap. And oh man, okay, now I'll let you take it from here.
And then you get that motherfucking hammer.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Shit is motherfucking lit.
Yeah. I forgot to say that. He does get Mjolnir, and we confirm that Cap is able to wield Mjolnir. It was something that was sort of alluded at in Age of Ultron, but such an amazing moment. Every single time I see it, the audience...
I just love Thor's reaction. I just love how Thor has a gigantic, goofy ass...
Yes, like, I knew it.
I knew it.
Yeah, it's great.
That moment is just like it's so fucking
Listen,
good. It's
I saw this with a boring ass crowd in my fucking ear, but that was the one moment everybody was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah,
that moment was fucking awesome, dude. Yeah, I was like, holy fuck, they actually did it. Like when it happened, and I don't know, man. I thought it was just fucking awesome.
Yeah,
And then I just got to say this. Look, like I was just sitting there in the theater, and like once like it all begins, the Avengers Assemble moment. Just to let's just jump into it. Like, I mean, look, I don't know if it probably is not the best action sequence of all time, but like when I was sitting there in that auditorium, I was just like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. It was the most amazing nerdgasm I have had in the longest time.
Listen, I've only seen this movie once, but I don't care. It's the most epic fucking thing I have ever seen in my whole goddamn life. Okay, like seeing
amazing.
All these heroes finally come together.
Oh my god!
I know, man. Right.
Yep, and like I said in my review, basically pick something in the MCU you've always wanted to see. It's in here. You get to see Spider-Man lay out the instant kill. If you don't like that, well, you get to see, like I said, Cap wielding Mjolnir. If you don't like that, you get to see every single Avenger come out of these portals. If you don't like that, you get to see, Drax going nuts. You get to see all this just amazing stuff overall. You get the moment where Hawkeye is running through the tunnels, and it's like Alien or something, and he's trying to get away from all of the Black Order and things like that. And you even have the moment where T'Challa says, Clint, give it to me. And if you remember in Civil War, there was that moment between Clint and T'Challa where he's like, I'm Clint, and T'Challa says, I don't care. So just that alone is a really great callback. There's so many great callbacks in this scene. Honestly, we could talk for days about it. There's so much to love. The moment with all of the females facing off Thanos, the moment where Scarlet Witch is just like, you took everything from me. I love the way that's done. Captain Marvel come back. I mean, there's just so much to love about the sequence. And it definitely, for me, is one of the best action sequences of all time. It's one where years from now, people are going to be talking about this. When you think about grandiose action set pieces, this is one that people will absolutely be talking about, and they damn well should. The way they were able to pull this off is fantastic. So many characters in one scene, so much going on at once, and it's absolutely insane. I love the way this was done. I really don't think they're ever going to be able to replicate something like this, and it was fucking beautiful the way all of this was done. But I will let you guys continue, because there's so much to talk about with this scene.
Dude, it's like the idea of like Avengers Assemble. It was like it could only be said now because everyone is actually there, and it's like everyone can assemble at once.
Howard the Duck.
Dude, it's like I was just like, holy shit! Like it was just like the most epic fucking thing possible, and just everything that happened, I was just like, holy fucking poop, and I don't know, dude. I mean, Kevin already went down it. There's so much to talk about. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, the moment between Peter and well, also you forgot to mention where Captain Marvel comes down and like she like basically blows up the ship. That was fucking dope. Was great. Yeah, man. I mean, and then of course the moment where Carol comes down and then Peter's like, "Hi, I'm Peter." She's like, "Hi, Peter Parker."
That's great.
That was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, it was just like it's just such a great. There's so many great things that happened in the fucking scene.
We're not like, goddamn, Valkyrie fucking riding on a goddamn like horse with fucking wings, like Jesus.
Oh my god, that was great. And then when he goes on, he's like, "Nice to meet you." Oh my god.
Nice to meet you. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was great.
That was great.
Like just there's so much. Like there's honestly so much in action sequence that can there's picked down.
Even Pepper Potts gets in on the action. She has the suit that that, she had from Iron Man 3, which was really cool to see. She has the mask that Tony said that he was making for her. Just, there's so much to love about the sequence. And going back to Captain Marvel, a lot of people suspected that she would be sort of overpowered, but she can't even take on Thanos. There's that moment where, yeah, he punches her and she doesn't really flinch or anything like that. But even at that, she's not the one to take him down. He's too powerful. He's got too much of an army. He's got too much armor. They can't take him down. And then, of course, the big moment happens where, after everything has happened, Cap hasn't been able to do it. Thor hasn't been able to do it. Tony decides, what he's going to do. And there's that moment with Doctor Strange where he asks him, you said one of 2 million, one of 200 million or something like that.
14 million.
14 million. There we go. One of 14 million, is this the one? And Doctor Strange says, if I tell you which one it is, it won't happen. But there's that moment where Tony is facing Thanos and you see him gesture to Tony. And it's basically like, take the stone. And it's just that moment where he's like, holy shit, this is the one. And so Tony, knowing what's going to happen to him, he grabs the stones from Thanos. Thanos is about to snap, but there's nothing there because Tony has taken all the stones. He puts them in his tech. And he says the iconic line that I am not going to say because Caden loves this character way too much to not say it.
And I just love how he says it, like, and it's like, and I am, and then the pause, then Iron Man, then he snaps, and I went fucking ape shit. I was like, fuck you, that's my boy.
Yes,
because I've been telling you, Kevin. I've been telling you, it has to be Tony that technically kills Thanos. I know that like a lot of people are like, people get like too much into like, okay, how did it all start? Who did it start with? But with this, it had to be Tony, and it just like the way it was done. Yes, he obviously dies from it, but like I mean, the way it happened was just so fucking awesome, and I just it was fucking beautiful, even though he died, and I was very sad about it, but it's okay.
And it's a great moment for Tony, too, because, Tony's someone who we know a big conflict of his, especially established in Iron Man 3, is that he wants to save everyone, even though he knew he couldn't do it. He kept building suits just so he could save as many people as possible. So even though, he does die in this moment, he dies a hero's death. It's a happy death because he did get to save everyone. He did get to, save the universe. And it's just such a fantastic moment, the way that's done. They definitely pick the right person to kill Thanos, and oh my god, just Robert Downey Jr. in that scene, and I am Iron Man. That's going to be such an iconic quote years from now, and I love the way all of that was done. But Double Nine, go ahead.
Just that moment gave me chills. Just Thanos realizes the stones are not there. Tony's got them all, and he's like, I am Iron Man. Just even fucking snaps. I'm like, oh my god. Like, and
it took a while for Thanos to dust too, which I thought was really cool.
I thought it was great. Like, it was a nice, it was just a nice, like, satisfying we won moment. It was great.
Yes, and then of course we get to,
but it gets to
so of course we have this great victory, but very quickly it is undermined by probably the most devastating, but also the most satisfying thing in this entire film, and that is the death of Tony Stark. I mean, I can't think of a better way for him to die, having Pepper by his side, telling him that we're going to be okay. You can rest now. He's been able to do everything. He's been able to get everything he's ever wanted. He's been able to save everyone. And even though Pepper, she's clearly trying to hold back her tears and things like that, but in that moment, she tells him that, you can rest now and things like that. It's such a great moment overall. And even before that, when Peter goes to him and he's like, this is Peter, we've won. Again, sort of in the opposite of what happened in the last film, rather than Peter dying in Tony's arms. It's Tony in Peter's arms, which was just a really great moment overall. He gets that moment with Rhodey. Just so much great stuff about that scene. And of course, once he does, once the light finally goes out on his arc reactor, that's when Pepper does in fact break down, and just such a beautiful scene overall. Of course, especially once we lead into the funeral scene. I mean, just everything about that is so great. So we see every single character character that has ever had an impact on Tony Stark. Not just the Guardians, not just not just the core Avengers. We even get to see Harley Keener come back from Iron Man 3, which was great to see. And I love the way they ended with Nick Fury as well. You know, the one who really started all, the one who recruited Tony, the one who, if he hadn't recruited Tony, none of this would have happened in the first place. It's just a perfect way to say goodbye to this character. That message he leaves for Pepper and Morgan. Of course, the already iconic "I love you 3000" line, which, I mean, just everyone's already saying that, which they definitely should be, because it's such a fantastic line. Just all of that alone, I just can't think of a better way for this character to die. And Robert Downey Jr. was not lying when he said, like, these last 8 minutes are some of the best in any MCU film. I do think they are the best in any MCU film, and it really is thanks to the way they handled Tony's death.
You know what? I'm gonna let Double Nine go first on this one.
Okay. All right. Well, this moment pretty much broke me, because I love the character of Tony Stark a lot, and just seeing just all this devastating. But the thing, like, I was already getting emotional. But the one thing that just immediately broke me was seeing Peter just be like, Mr. Stark, we want you.
Oh, man.
Because, like, it's because he saw him as like a father figure to him, and like just losing him like that just broke him. It was so devastating to see, and just the way that the funeral was done, like, oh, it was so beautiful. Like, I thought it was a sad but beautiful moment. I thought the way that they handled it was really great, and honestly, like, it's just probably one of the most emotional things I've ever seen in my whole life.
Man.
Yeah.
Where do I even fucking begin with this fucking thing? I mean, like...
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, I've like talked about this like so much at this point. So like, but it's like the way that he died was so fucking beautiful. Like the funeral and just like the funeral. Like I agree so much with Chris Sucken when he said he cried even more once it showed everyone that he's impacted, like standing in honor of him, because everyone's been kind of like against him for a while now because of how like cocky he can be and just how like, I guess like selfish he can be, but he really died for the sake of the universe. And no one talks about the line when he's with his dad in the elevator and his dad says, hopefully it's a daughter, so they don't end up more like me. He's like, why would that be a bad thing? And then his dad said, so he says something like, because I so they won't put their own self-interest in front of like the world's, And I thought that like that moment Tony kind of remembered that and was like, shit, you know what? Like this has got what I got to do, and he just fucking did it. And it was fucking it was beautiful, and I saw it I've seen 3 times, and every time I obviously cried, but the first time I was just like, I saw it in IMAX 3D, and I was just like my glasses were like, they were dead, man. They were broken. I was just like, God damn. I was like, I don't know, man. I mean, that was like saying goodbye to fucking family, but like in like the most like beautiful way possible. It's probably like it's probably like my favorite fucking scene in this whole fucking MCU thing. But like I don't know, it was just so fucking just.
Oh, for sure, it's top tier.
It's just crazy that like they stuck the landing that fucking well. It's just like, I don't know, man. I mean, I mean, hey, man, Robert Downey Jr. like he just kept getting better and better and better with like every fucking film. It's like insane. So yeah, I mean, I've always thought that like Civil War would be his best performance as Tony Stark, but this is up there with it, and it's amazing to say, because it's a genuinely just touching moment, and just it's a fantastic moment. It's probably gonna go down as like it's funny because I was like, nothing's gonna beat the ending of Glass for the best scene of the year, so throw that out of the water.
Yeah. So basically after that, that's still not the ending of the film. What we get after is basically a series of epilogues. We have this beautiful scene with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, and they're talking about, the people that they had to sacrifice, how Black Widow knows, he's hoping that she knows that they won, and Scarlet Witch says she knows, and then she says that both of them do, obviously alluding to Vision, which I thought was such a great scene overall. And during Tony's whole speech, we do get to see him reunite with his family. We get to see Peter reunite with Ned and things like that. All of that is so great. But then, of course, we get to one of my favorite parts of this entire ending, and that is what they decide to do with Thor, which I love this. He's talking to Valkyrie. She's asking him, when can we see you returning to New Asgard? And, at first he says no. She thinks he's joking around, but it turns out no, he actually is serious. He really is taking what his mother said to heart, where she said, don't be the person that people want you to be. Follow the path that you want to take. And he realizes that he doesn't want this anymore. He doesn't want to be the king of Asgard. What he wants to be is with the Guardians. And it turns out that one of my predictions that I wanted to happen, it is happening. Thor is joining the Guardians. They are now the Asgardians of the Galaxy, as he refers to them, and I fucking love this. The rapport between him and Star-Lord, the banter between them is so great. I am so excited to see where that ends up going. It seems like moving forward, the story is going to be them trying to locate Gamora, because we really don't know what happened to her. We had that, I forgot to talk about this, we had that scene between her and Quill where he thinks he sees her, but it's the 2014 version of her, and she wants nothing to do with him. She kicks him in the balls, and he's like, the first time you missed him, but the second time you got both of them. That was great. So I'm excited to see really where that ends up going. And yeah, so Thor's now going to be with the Guardians, which means he is still going to be in the MCU. News actually just came out today that he has renewed his contract for 2 more films, which has me so excited. I can't wait to see what else they do with this character. And honestly, Thor was the one member of the 6 MCU characters, besides Black Widow, that I thought for sure, yeah, he's going to be back. And I was really hoping that they keep him around, because I really don't think the Thor character has ever been better than he is now. And I'm glad to see that they are keeping him around when he is as popular and as well written as he is now. I am so excited to see the way all that goes down. I think it was definitely the right decision to have him be a part of the Guardians, but also having Valkyrie now taking over New Asgard is something I'm also very excited to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a beautiful combination, because everyone's like, okay, Chris Hemsworth, he's just as good or even better of a comedic actor than he is a dramatic or action actor. So you're putting the brains with the brawn, you know what I mean? That was about
yep.
It. But it's gonna be awesome to see, and I already love the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt. It's fucking amazing.
Oh,
so
yes.
I can't wait to see where it all goes in the next one.
Yeah, and especially knowing James Gunn is back as well, I am so excited.
Thank the fucking Lord
to see what he does with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that scene was really good too, and I'm already excited to see what they'll do with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, knowing that Thor is going to be there with them.
Yes.
I'm very excited to see where they go with that, because like Kane said, I can already, the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt is already great. That whole, we all know who the leader of the ship is, and he's like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's talking about how awkward that scene was. It's it's supposed to be awkward.
It's awkward in a really good way.
Yeah. There are times where you think that scene's gonna cut, but they don't cut because they keep fighting, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I'm generally excited to see what they do with the next Guardians film, because Thor's going to be in there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically everything that happens there. And then we get to my boy over here. My boy, he gets his ending, and it is as perfect as you could have expected. So yes. Well, he's on my shirt, so my boy. All right. So basically, Steve, they had that agreement where they were going to return the stones. He decides to return the stones, but he has this moment with Bucky. And the way this scene is done, watching it back, you realize that, holy shit, this is not Steve just, going back and returning the stones. No, he is actually going to finally fulfill his destiny, and he does. He decides to go be with Peggy. So once he comes back, he's no longer the Steve that we've seen. No, he is now an old man, because he no longer is a man, living in the wrong time. He finally got to be with Peggy. They get to have their dance together, and he decides to pass the shield on to Sam. He doesn't pass it on to Bucky, which is understandable considering that Bucky, he's done a lot of really shady shit, and he's still not all the way there. While he is still getting better, he's still not 100% there. There's still a part of him that, is still, is still sort of, developing, good intentions and things like that. And the moment where he passed it on to Sam and Sam says that, it feels like it should belong to someone else. It was just a really great scene. It makes sense why he give it to Sam because Bucky, like I said, sure, Bucky and him have this bond, but there were moments where Bucky turned against Cap because of him being brainwashed. Sam has always been loyal to Cap since day one. He's never wavered ever since then. I mean, especially the scene where he says, if you want, I can come with you. So that alone just shows that, yes, Sam should definitely get the shield. I don't know if he's actually going to become Captain America. Anthony Mackie has said something to the effect of like, he's not going to be Captain America. I don't exactly know what that means. We know there's the Falcon and Winter Soldier series coming out, so we'll have to see the way that all turns out. But the way that was done was so beautifully handled. Seeing Steve finally getting that dance with Peggy, I wept. It was such a beautiful moment, and similar to Tony, I could not have asked for a better way to conclude that character's arc.
I'll let Caden go first because, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought it was just a beautiful, beautiful scene. I mean, like, it's just such a beautiful fucking ending. Like everything just wraps up just so fucking, like, nicely. It's just, like, it's like, damn, it's crazy, man. I mean, I'm just, like, I don't know. I mean, I also really, really like the character of Captain America and Steve, and just to see him get that dance, it was kind of like with his dad.
Yeah,
it was just beautiful, man. Yeah, I mean, look, I've loved Chris Evans as his character. He was perfect casting. Thank God he took the role. And yeah, it's also kind of bittersweet to see him go. Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that his character had such a great ending.
Yeah, this was literally perfect. This was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my whole life. Like I just was so happy that he got his like happy ending because he's been my favorite Avenger, for a long time now, and I love his character so much, and everything that he's been through in a lot of these movies. I'm really glad that he finally got that last dance with Peggy, and I really like that he passed down the shield to Sam because, like, Kevin said, I feel like if he passed it down to Bucky, I don't think it would have had as big of an impact because Bucky, in the past, he did some, like, really bad things. I don't think it would have worked as well. I think Bucky, at the same time, the character would even feel that way. Like, he'd feel he wouldn't be worthy to wield the shield. So I actually like that was Sam because, like, Kevin said also, Sam has been by Cap's side, from, for a long time now. And I actually really like that. I thought that was very well done. And just that was just perfect. Just the way that the movie ended with their dance, it was perfect.
Yeah, and like I said before, a lot of people have talked about this. When Cap talks to Bucky, it's almost as if Bucky knew that he was leaving. A lot of people think, before this, maybe Cap took him aside, told him he was leaving, and it very much does seem like that because the way rewatch that scene, the way Bucky, acts, it does not seem like, oh, this is going to be a goodbye and then I'll see you again in 5 seconds. No, this is him saying goodbye to the Steve Rogers that he knew. And it's a very beautiful scene overall. So yeah, just a very beautiful way to end this just masterful film overall. I know there's a lot more stuff that we definitely could get into for sure. A lot of great jokes and things like that. But the last thing that we are going to talk about is where does the MCU really go from here? Because believe it or not, there are going to be more movies after this film. I know it's shocking. And like I said, aside from Guardians 3, if this was the end of the MCU, I would be fulfilled. They closed out a lot of stuff, and I would be fine if they were to stop here and just make like Guardians 3 and just end it there. But there are still a lot of things that they can do moving forward. I'm excited to see where they really do end up going. Obviously, Guardians, it's going to be about, what happened to Gamora. That's definitely going to be very interesting to see what happened to Loki. What are we going to do? Who are all the new characters? Is there going to be another Avengers film? There's just the MCU's future. It's very uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty there, and I'm fine with that. I'm excited to see really where they do end up going. But I think one thing is for sure, Double Nine, my fellow co-host, one of my co-hosts of the MCU conversation, Spider-Man Far From Home, before we were all like, why is this the end of phase 3? It should be Avengers Endgame. But considering the way things left off here, it makes sense why Far From Home is ending, because I think that really is going to be the aftermath. We're going to see Peter grieving Tony. We're going to see him having to move on without his sort of Uncle Ben in the series, because Tony really was that Uncle Ben to him in this series, if you really do think about it, for sure. And you're going to see him kind of grieving him. But we're also, I think, going to get more of a sense of where the MCU is really going to go from here in phase 4, because, we don't really know. We don't know a lot of what's going on. We know there's going to be a Black Widow movie. We know, obviously, Guardians 3. We know Eternals is coming out, but there's a lot of things that are still unknown, and I'm excited to see where they really do go moving forward. There definitely are a lot of questions for sure, but I feel like a lot of those are going to be answered through Spider-Man Far From Home, and also the Disney Plus series. I think that's going to be a lot of answers as well, but we'll just have to see the way things turn out. But of course, before we close this out, is there anything more you guys want to say about the future of the MCU overall?
Ken, you want to go first?
I'm eating a sandwich, so you go first.
Okay, all right. I'm eating a sandwich.
Wow.
Cries.
This is how, just similar to how Thor was eating bread in the beginning of the movie because of him feeling like a failure. This is how Caden copes with the loss of Tony Stark, by eating bread.
Shut the fuck up. I like my sandwiches. Also, I got more provolone cheese.
Before we know
provolone cheese. Anyway,
yeah.
But no. I am interested to see where the MCU goes on from here, because, like you said, I actually would have been fine if this was the ending to the entire franchise, to be honest, because it was such a satisfying ending. But I am interested to see where it could go from here. I am excited for Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm really excited for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So there are some things that I am interested for it going forward.
Yeah, also Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2.
Yeah, there are things that I am excited about. So I am interested to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what happens next. I'll say this though. After Phase 4, I do hope they wrap things up though, because I'm like, after that, obviously they can do a lot of stories of, I think like the A-Team, A-Force. There's gonna be Doctor Strange, Black Panther. Yeah, so like I think after that, I hope that like they sort of begin to kind of slow things down, hopefully. But hey, I mean, this whole Infinity Saga has been amazing to be a part of, and like I said, watching Iron Man back 2008 to now, it's just been an incredible journey that I'm happy to be a part of, and I'm excited to see where everything goes.
Yeah, all right. Well, very last minute, we now have Jackson Fulcher has finally arrived. We are at the tail end here. Very, very good timing for sure. But since you are here,
what do you mean, Kevin, you told me we were starting at 11 o'clock.
I mean,
wow, Kevin.
Well,
did you lie so that you thought I could miss this whole thing? Wow, Kevin, that's really rude.
That's definitely what happened. But either way, since you're here, Jackson, we're all kind of questioning, where do you think the MCU goes after Endgame?
It's really hard to pin that down, because I'm sure you guys have talked about it already, but this seemed like a pretty epic film, like almost impossible to kind of top. So I think definitely them buying Fox and getting the rights of Galactus, like the Planet Eater character, that kind of gives them some places to go. But even then, it's like where do we even go for how long is that going to take? Is it going to be like a slow build, or is it going to be quick? Like I don't know, man. I think they might take their time before they get to anything as big as this ever again. You know what I mean?
They're going to, because Kevin Feige even said it's gonna be a while before we see the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. So I feel like a lot of Phase 4, I think, is going to be how the characters that that were affected by the snap, how they kind of move on from that, because, you know, things have changed in the span of 5 years. We're going to see that in Black Panther 2. We're going to see them Far From Home. I feel like that's going to be one of the major stories, but like in terms of the overall MCU, like I said, it's very uncertain.
Now, I don't know if you've asked this or not, but do you think there will be another Avengers movie in Phase 4? Like, do you think they'll actually go ahead with that, or do you think they'll hold off and just stick with solo stuff for now?
I think moving forward, this is just me personally, I feel like this is going to be a period of them. They're going to test stuff out. They're going to see, you know, what works, especially with Disney Plus. I think that's kind of their way of, you know, testing the waters to see, you know, can this character work on their own? Can this character work on their own? And then I think once they have like a hand of what they want to do, I think that's when we're going to start to see, you know, more team ups and things like that. But I think for a while, it's going to be primarily solo stuff.
Right. Yeah. All right.
So, yeah.
Also, I love this movie. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, infinity out of 10. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, Caden. So now that you're done, are you still eating a sandwich?
Yes.
Okay. Well, is there anything you want to say about the MCU moving forward?
I already have said something about the MCU.
Oh yeah, true.
Fucking idiot.
That was really good, Caden. Now, Jackson, what do you want to say? Okay, good. Caden, what did you want to say?
Well, you know what, Jackson? You came in and I got confused.
No,
either way, guys.
Stop making excuses.
That is the truth here.
So with all of that does conclude our thoughts on our spoiler thoughts on Avengers Endgame. Holy fuck!
Shut up, Kevin. Do the
outro. All I hear is paper.
All I hear is your dumbass voice.
All I heard was a loud scream and we're done. All I hear is
Kevin, can you shut up? I hate you 3000.
Yeah. You know what? I hate you 3000 as well. But either way, guys, that concludes our spoiler thoughts on Avengers Endgame. A lot of fun for sure. I do apologize for getting this out as late as I did. I would have gotten it out last week, but as you guys know, I had the inability to, you know, upload my spoiler-free review, and I wanted to wait till that was up to do this video, obviously. But either way, that's it for our thoughts on Avengers Endgame. If you guys have any other thoughts about the movie, or if there's anything that we didn't bring up that you want to talk about, by all means, just comment down below, and I'll try to respond to them to the best of my ability. But before we do close out, is there anything you guys want to say?
Kevin, thank you for having me on. Yeah, it was fun to talk about this movie and all of its glorious details. And Caden, you're a glorious penguin. Now, everybody have a good night.
Wow.
And thanks for having me on, Kevin. I appreciate it. I still hate you 3000, but it's gonna be okay. Well,
fuck yeah.
Well, you know what? This is proof that I didn't have a heart. There you go.
Oh my God, Kevin, can you shut the fuck up?
Well, and since Kevin gave me the wrong time and I missed this whole thing, let me just go over everything I had. Now I have like at least 500 pages of notes I want to discuss. Now, first of all, the first thing I want to go over really quickly. Don't interrupt me.
And that concludes our thoughts on the Avengers Endgame spoiler review. Thank you guys for watching. This was definitely a lot of fun for sure. Also, guys, just so you know, we are not done with the MCU conversation. This is not the last episode because Spider-Man Far From Home is the last film in this phase. That is when Double Nine, Abinai, and then whoever else is on that one. That's when we'll be ranking the phase overall and giving our initial thoughts on it. So definitely look forward to that. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.